Thank you guys for joining us for This Week in Housing. I'm Corey Shields.
Michael Williams.
And we are going to run through some newspaper headlines from this week and see what's going on in the Dalton area. So, Michael, are you ready?
I am ready. A little different than last time. We were actually looking for local headlines now. So
change it up. Google was a little off the radar, so we decided to localize just a bit.
All right.
So, headline number one, Michael, says Whitfield County Schools plans for same property tax rate.
All right. How about that?
How about it?
So one of the things that I find interesting about these kinds of headlines is that it says that the schools plan for the same property tax rate. So in my head, as a property tax person, somebody that owns property, I think, oh good, my taxes are going to stay the exact same. Unfortunately, that is not the case. So what really happens is the millage rate, the rate that they tax you at, may stay the same, but the value of your property has gone up tremendously. As we've talked about on the show many times, the values have gone up. And I just did this math for somebody this week. The last 30 days, the average sale price in Whitfield County, $265. It's the highest we've ever had in Whitfield County. So if you're paying taxes at $200 last year, and this year you're paying taxes at $265, that same millage rate means you're paying a lot more in taxes. So don't let the headline fool you. You are actually paying more in taxes.
So what you're saying is, don't just rely on the headline.
There you go.
Maybe read the rest of the words.
Read the story. That is good advice for sure.
All right, Michael, that's Whitfield County Schools. Next headline, Murray County Schools likely to hold property tax rate steady. So sounds like essentially the same thing going on over there, right?
Yeah, that is the case. So there's a little bit of difference in Whitfield and Murray County. Murray County taxes are traditionally a little less. In the city of Dalton, there's a different tax rate for Whitfield County than there is city of Dalton. In Murray County, there's a different tax rate than in the city of Chatsworth. But there are actually different taxes you have to pay to the city of Chatsworth. In Whitfield County, you pay one property tax bill. Murray County, there's actually a different tax bill for the city, so you have to pay that tax bill plus your county tax bill. So that's a little bit of a difference that some people don't realize when they first move to our area.
Gotcha. Next headline says, county commissioners to consider property tax cut.
Tax cut?
And
that
this
sounds
is
even more interesting.
Important to note, this is Whitfield County, not Murray County.
Right. So a little distinction there. You know, we read the first headline and it says, read the first headline again, so that not this one, but
first one, Whitfield County Schools plans for same property tax rate.
There you go. So there's actually a couple of different taxing entities. A lot of people don't understand that difference either. So Whitfield County has a tax that they charge you for county services, but then there's Whitfield County Schools that charge you a tax. So that first headline actually is Whitfield County Schools, not just Whitfield County. Mm-hmm. And then Murray County Schools, likely. And then this last one was County Commissioners consider a property tax cut. So this is just the county piece. And the real interesting part of that is the school tax is so much more than the county tax. Same deal in the city. The city tax is actually quite small compared to the city school tax. So unfortunately, whether you have kids in school or not, you still pay that tax until you get to be 70 years old. And then there's what they call the double exemption. So you can get a Homestead Exemption, which lowers your taxes. Corey, have you filed your Homestead Exemption?
We're getting there.
We're getting there. 4 years in. We're getting there.
Yeah. Slow and steady.
Yeah, so you get the Homestead Exemption, but then once you turn 70, you can also exempt out of the school tax, which is a huge difference. So probably good for people to know. Consumers need to understand that if you're buying a house from somebody who's 77 and their taxes are $74.37, very good chance that Corey is going to pay more than 77-year-old Jerome, right? Like there is a big difference. So what most of the time happens is the attorney will make a good guess and say, okay, here's what your taxes ought to be. And so it'll be somewhere close to that. There's too many factors that change the number throughout the course of the year. So the attorney's going to do his best to estimate that tax, but ultimately you will pay more than the 77-year-old would be if you're under 70. So
right,
be prepared for that.
And so some newspaper information that we don't have here on the table. We were talking about before we started filming. Foreclosures. Everybody's asking about foreclosures. When's that going to be happening? Mm-hmm. Usually the answer is, well, there are none. But I believe we were discussing how many?
There was a 400% increase.
400% increase
From the foreclosures that were announced in September versus the foreclosures that were announced in August. 400% increase in Whitfield County foreclosures.
There's that crash everyone's looking for.
There
it is.
Yeah. So, you want to know how many there were?
Mm-hmm.
There was 1 in August, and now there's 4 in September. So there's a 400% increase, right?
It's going down.
That's right. Everybody get your cash out. So, no, literally, though, I looked at the paper earlier today and saw that there were 4 foreclosures that were announced in this past Friday's paper. So the way that foreclosures work, they must be advertised in the local paper, and they have to go 4 Fridays before the first Tuesday of the month. So in Murray County, for example, the Chatsworth Times only comes out once a week, and it's on Wednesday. So they need to advertise it 4 weeks prior to the first Tuesday of the month. The first Tuesday of the month is when the actual foreclosure sale happens. And so this month, there are 4. Last month, there was only 1. So last month, they didn't even actually call that one. Something happened along the way, so that one never actually got called. And so when you have 4, it's typical that 1 or 2 of those won't actually make it till that Tuesday. Something will happen. They'll either file bankruptcy, maybe they get their mortgage caught up, maybe they file a forbearance document that allows them to kind of stay the foreclosure for a little while. So there are ways to avoid foreclosure. It could be that, and I've done this myself, I see a foreclosure in the paper on that Friday, and I look at it and I see that it's a good deal. I will go try to find that seller or that owner and say, hey, listen, I'd love to stop this foreclosure for you. Sell me the house before it gets to the steps. I'll even help you move. I'll pay some money for your movers if you will let me buy the house before it gets to the steps. So that is one way that investors can buy homes before they get to the steps. If you go to the steps, you have to have cash with you. And when I say cash, I mean cashier's checks. Mm-hmm. So there's this hassle of going down to the bank and getting all these denominations of cashier's checks. And, if this house sells for $77,220, well, you're either going to give them too much money or you're going to have a whole bunch of denominations to try to figure out how to pay for the house. So much easier to contact the person directly, get a contract signed, go through the process of getting title search and all that done before the steps. It's a much safer process, and usually you get a better deal that way. And a real estate agent can help you with that.
That is very true. I do have to ask, since you said you've taken that route before for investment properties, I got to ask, what's the reception like whenever you contact what we in the business call a distressed seller or distressed homeowner? Yeah. Are they appreciative? Like, oh, how nice of you to help me out, or is there some language in that phone call that we won't repeat on the podcast?
Well, most of the time it's not a phone call; it's in person. I have had doors slammed in my face. I've had people. Typically, when I go, I take the newspaper with me, and so I kind of have it tucked under my arm, and so I tell the person, "Hey, listen, I saw your house was in the paper. Are you interested in selling?" So I don't say, "Hey, I saw you didn't pay your bill," right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, you might want to pay your mortgage because I'm about to buy your house. Probably not the good strategy, right?
Yeah.
So I do knock on the door. I say, hey, listen, I saw your house in the paper. I'd love to talk to you about buying it. Would you be willing to sell it? And sometimes I've had, let me see that thing. And then they'll take the paper out of my hand and, oh, this is garbage. And they'll slam the door in your face, right?
Yeah.
And most of the time I'll knock and say, hey, can I have my paper back? Because there's more than one, right? So I'm like, hey, can I at least have my paper back?
Yeah.
And I try to carry on the conversation because ultimately I am there to help them. They're going to get nothing if it goes to the steps. Yeah. If they will sell to me, I don't think I've ever offered less than $5,000, but every now and then, if there's no skin in the game, I'll at least help them get out of the house. Like, I'll help them get their stuff. Because a lot of times if it gets foreclosed on, they're at risk of getting zero. They might not even get their belongings out. So it's a bad situation most of the time. Now, there have been times when they said, oh my goodness, I'm so glad you came by. I had no idea. Now, whether they had no idea or not, I don't know, but I helped them figure out what to do. And so there's been times when I haven't bought the house, but I've helped them at least stop the foreclosure, put them in touch with a bankruptcy attorney, or explain to them, here's how you can get out, right? So there's a lot of different ways to do it, but I have actually helped a lady get her stuff out and sold the house to an investor that I work with. So I acted as the agent. An investor bought the house, and he literally drove her to Birmingham, Alabama, to her family after the sale.
Oh, wow.
So that he was just a nice helpful guy, and so he drove her to her family. So
Wow.
that was a really cool story.
Very nice guy.
Yeah, he paid for the moving costs, and so it worked out really well for her.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then he spent a ton of money fixing it and resold it and made money, and so yeah, it worked out really well for him.
I feel like we got to end on a very happy note like that.
Yeah,
Like
very
that's
good.
how are we going to top that?
Sounds good to me.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us on This Week in Housing. Like I said, I'm Corey Shields,
I'm Michael Williams.
and we
Thanks.
will see you next time.